Do you ever find yourself thinking, why do I keep pulling my hair out? Whether it's during moments of boredom, stress, or sometimes you don't even realize until after it's done, this behavior of pulling your hair can feel puzzling and make you feel completely out of control. Now, today we're going to break down exactly why people with trichotillomania, which is the clinical term for people who pull their hair out, why they pull their hair, and most importantly, what you can do about it. Hello, welcome back to your Anxiety Toolkit. My name is Kimberly Quinlan, and as always, I'm here to educate you and help you manage anxiety disorders and obsessive compulsive related disorders. These are things that many people struggle with from time to time. So today, we're talking specifically about trichotillomania or hair pulling and why it happens. If you've ever caught yourself pulling your hair and you've wondered why are we doing this? We're going to get to the bottom of it together. Let me first say though, is please as we do this, be gentle with yourself. You're not alone in this struggle. Trichotillomania can feel very confusing, especially when you don't realize you're doing it. Many people find that they pull their hair out without even realizing they're engaging in these behaviors. But here's the thing. There are specific reasons why people pull their hair out. And once we understand what's behind it, we can then start working on changing on it. Now, we actually have online course for BFRBs, which is called BFRB School for people with hair pulling and skin picking. And what we do is we walk through, we do this with clients as well, is we do a thorough inventory of why they pull their hair and when they pull their hair. And then we customize a plan specific to these behaviors. Now, if you're interested in that course, go to cbtschool.com. We have a whole bunch of courses there for anxiety, OCD, hair pulling, skin picking. We also have courses for clinicians who want to learn the evidence-based skills for their own practices. And if you're interested, again, you can go to cbtschool.com. But what we do in those courses, a part of that is what we're going to be doing today. We're going to examine the main reason people pull out their hair. Now, please note that these are in no particular order. My hope is that you just listen to each and every reason, and then you get to decide for yourself which ones apply to your specific hair pulling symptoms. There's no one way to have trichotillomania. So please be as gentle and as kind as you can as we explore why you pull your hair. Now, the number one reason people pulled out their hair is because of stress and anxiety. This is a huge one. A lot of people pull their hair out when they're feeling overwhelmed. They pull their hair when they want to feel calm. They want to feel in control. They want to pull their hair to deal with the anxiety and tension that they're carrying. In that moment, pulling hair or even inspecting the hair reduces that distracting, overwhelming feeling of anxiety. A lot of people say as they pull, they may experience moments of deep calm. We actually call this a trance-like moment in which the anxiety and panic and all their discomfort go away. But unfortunately, as you probably already know, the relief doesn't last. While you're pulling, it can give you some temporary relief from the stress and anxiety, but you'll most likely feel worse afterward. And your anxiety is right there once you stop pulling. Now, in this case, the only way to get ongoing relief is to keep pulling. And my guess is the reason you're listening is because you'd like to one day be able to stop pulling. Now, the good news is that some strategies and skills will help you manage both the anxiety and the pulling. And I'm going to share more of those specific tools a little later in this episode. Now, the second reason people might engage in pulling behaviors is because of hormonal changes. We have a lot of research to show that times like puberty or even around your menstrual cycle can make hair pulling more likely because your body and your emotions are going through massive changes and so many ups and downs. Now, statistics show that trichotillomania is several times more common in women and has peak onset around puberty. And from what scientists and researchers understand, lower levels of progesterone in specific were associated with more severe symptoms of trichotillomania. And lower levels of hormones were associated with worse overall functioning. Understanding this can be so helpful, especially to those who are noticing changes at that stage of life. Now, when it feels like everything's completely out of balance, pulling becomes your only way to cope. Now, the third reason people with hair pulling pull is genetics. There is a strong genetic factor when it comes to this condition. If you have a family member who pull their hair, maybe even pick their skin or engage in similar behaviors, you might be more likely to experience yourself. It's important to remember, though, that it's not your fault, whether you are either the child or the parent of someone who pulls their hair. It's just how some people's brains and genetics are wired. Now, one of the most common reasons my clients with trichotillomania pull their hair, or what they report, is number 4, which is boredom. Maybe it's one of those moments where you're just sitting around with nothing to do. Maybe you're watching TV, scrolling on your phone, or you're waiting for something, an appointment or something. And before you know it, you've raised your hand up to your hair and you're fiddling with your hair, or you're pulling on your hair. For many people, pulling becomes a way to fill empty space. Your brain is looking for stimulation, and pulling offers something to focus on, even if it's for a few seconds. Now, it's almost like your brain is saying, I need something to do. And hair pulling becomes exactly that. It's that something. It might be that it's the sensation or the texture, or maybe it's the search for that right feeling that the hair gives you. The 5th reason people pull their hair is the complete opposite situation to boredom, which is overstimulation, similar to anxiety. When people feel overstimulated, they turn to hair pulling to help calm themselves down. In fact, this is another situation where people fall into that trance-like action of hair pulling. Once they start pulling, they might experience an overall feeling of calm. Their heart rate might slow down. They might feel like everything slows down. Now, the 6th reason people pull out their hair is loneliness, or general feelings of disconnection. Now, in moments, if you're feeling like you're isolated, you're by yourself, pulling can act as a way to self-soothe or create a sense of comfort. It can provide a brief distraction from the emotional discomfort of loneliness, and it gives you a sense of control over how you're feeling. The 7th reason people pull their hair is feeling really tired. Sometimes when you're exhausted, your brain is just running on autopilot. You're too tired to focus on not pulling your hair, and pulling your hair becomes the default behavior. It's like your brain is saying, I don't have the energy to deal with this right now. And pulling becomes a mindless way to cope with that fatigue. Now, the tiredness makes you feel less aware of your actions too. And so pulling often will almost become automatic. Now, the 8th reason you might engage in hair pulling is the experience of tingling or itching sensations. For some, the hair pulling is tied to a physical sensation, such as a tingle or itch at the root of your hair, or even at the tips of your fingers. You might notice a slight irritation or an urge to fix the feeling. And the pulling of that hair gives temporary relief from that itchy or tingling sensation. It can feel like pulling is the only way to get rid of that discomfort, which makes the behavior very hard to resist. Now, even though the relief is temporary, it is enough to keep that cycle going. Now, lastly, we're going to address a very common reason people pull, and it's simply habit. Over time and repetition, hair pulling can actually become a habit. When you pull, your brain releases these feel-good chemicals. And after a while, your brain starts to expect that little reward. So pulling becomes something you do automatically without even thinking about it. Now, tools and strategies to manage your hair pulling. Let's get into it. So now that we know why you pull your hair, let's talk about what you can do to manage it. And here are a few strategies that have been shown from science to help. Now, the gold standard treatment for hair pulling is cognitive behavioral therapy. We call it CBT. That's why we call it CBT school. Now, there is a specific type of CBT called habit reversal training, called HRT. Habit reversal training is a super effective skill for hair pulling. Habit reversal training involves strategies that help you become more aware when you're about to pull, and it teaches you other ways to respond. So instead of pulling, you might find actions such as squeezing a stress ball or playing with a fidget tool to keep your hands busy. Now, another practical skill that will accompany your habit reversal training is mindfulness. We cover this in BFB school as well. Mindfulness is all about noticing what's happening in the moment. When you feel the urge to pull, you can actually use mindfulness to bring awareness to that moment. Now, bringing awareness to the moment can help you identify why you're feeling the urge to pull and help you stop that pulling before it starts. You would intervene. Now, as always, recovery for trichotillomania must involve self-compassion as well. It's so important that you are kind to yourself. It's so easy to beat yourself up after pulling, but you must remind yourself that this is a behavior you're working on and that change takes time. You're learning and doing your best, and that's an amazing, amazing start. So there you have it. If you're thinking, why do I keep pulling my hair out? Remember, there are real reasons for it. And understanding those reasons is the first step towards making changes and getting towards recovery. Whether it's stress, boredom, or even hormones, you're not alone in this. You are not defined by this behavior. And with the right tools, you can manage it. And again, with kindness. Each time you practice awareness or a different strategy instead of pulling, you're moving one step closer to breaking that cycle. And that is something to celebrate. Now, thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I know how valuable your time is, so thank you so much. And once again, if you're interested in our online course for BFRB hair pulling and skin picking, head on over to CBT School and check it out. And remember, as I always say, today is a beautiful day to do hard things.